My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Welcome into another episode of Judd's Hockey Show, but not about the Wild. This is our continuing series. It's JHS Road to the World Junior Championships. Obviously, Judd and AJ. Now, don't forget, the World Juniors start December 26th. That's Boxing Day. That is coming up. Exactly right. Age is right.
Time's a-ticking.
His wrist. Exactly right. And it's going to the 50th anniversary of the tournament, going to be held at Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, and also 3M at Mariucci as it makes its return to the Twin Cities for the first time since the early 80s. Ticket information available, worldjuniorsmn26.com. Tickets for every session now are available, worldjuniorsmn26.com. And our guest is going to help us break this tournament down in great detail, a man that knows far more about the tournament than we do. That is Chris Peters, who is the content manager of FloHockey, and also a very well-known, if you're a hockey fan, you know that face because he is a draft and prospect analyst who breaks down hockey basically constantly, Chris. In fact, I saw that you are on a podcast on The Athletic where you have done, and it was great stuff, breakdowns of the expected U.S. and Canadian rosters. So welcome to the show, and we look forward to learning about what we're going to see here starting on Boxing Day with what personally is my favorite tournament, basketball, hockey, everything. It's my favorite annual tournament is the World Juniors.
Yeah, it's certainly mine too. And thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be with you. And just, I mean, I always associated this time of year, like as a kid with Christmas and everything else coming up and getting all excited.
Mm-hmm.
And then as an adult, I get to have that same feeling as we get ready for the World Juniors. So it's been really cool to experience that, and what a great tradition it is, and super pumped that this is the first World Juniors I'm going to be able to drive to. So
Nice.
I'm enjoying that too.
Nice.
So really excited.
Now, have you gone to all the tournaments now for several years, correct?
Yeah, I think going back to 2018, the only one that I didn't go to was the one that got canceled anyway. So so that was, I think going back, and I've been covering the tournament either remotely or in a various capacity since 2011. And I've worked at USA Hockey for a couple of years as well. So this has always been a big part of my year. Going on for more than 15 years now, so it's just it's such a great time, and certainly I think a lot of people are going to be really excited to see what these guys can do in St. Paul and Minneapolis.
Hey, Chris, for fans who aren't going to attend, and for a lot of them, it's going to be a first time. I'm so old that I actually was at the one in the early 80s. I went to a couple games, I think, at the old Met Center, but for fans who are hockey fans but are not familiar with sort of how this works and the flurry of activity, share with us what it's like just the tournament feel and the excitement, and really what I think is a really wide open game, because fortunately coaches don't have time to structure these things, and so it's just a ton of really top-notch talent.
Yeah, I think the actual in-person experience, it varies from year to year, country to country, the various places that it's been. I think that in Canada, there's obviously such a tremendous tradition there, so you're getting a lot of crowds. But I was there a few years ago in Sweden, and just packed house in the Scandinavium in Gothenburg, where Frölunda plays, and it's just like the passion and the national pride and everything that you see there from the various countries is super, super cool to see. And so, the last time it was in the US, it was in Buffalo for a second time. We had an outdoor game, and that was all right, but it was the second time around. So I think some people had kind of, the games didn't have the same necessary feel. But I think now you go into a place where, where obviously it's a huge partisan crowd for the U.S., which I think New Year's Eve against Sweden is going to be a remarkable atmosphere for that game. And I think for Canada over at 3M and Mariucci, like that's going to be the right kind of size for like the visiting team, if you will. And so I think there will still be a lot of Canadian fans that are going to be really interested in that. But I think in terms of actually watching the hockey, the pace is going to be super high. Yes, there will be some mistakes. Yes, there won't be as much structure. Yes, there's going to be some things that you're going to see that that are crazy. But I think back to some of the greatest moments of this tournament. Whether it's last second goals for Canada or overtime winners last year for Teddy Stiga and Team USA going back to back for the first time. You're always going to see something new. And, this year there's
Mhm.
so much to see. Top draft prospects, a U.S. team going for their first three-peat ever after doing their first repeat. So, I think that there's a lot of great things to kind of attach yourselves to. But I think the biggest thing is the players play with such passion that it really translates to the viewing experience. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've noticed.
And that's why I feel like this tournament every year is something that is must watch for hockey fans. Like you mentioned it, you're going to see mistakes, but that's also the kind of the rawness and the youngness that you see with this high level of talent for kids that are either maybe just got drafted the year prior, or in this case, there's some top prospects who are hoping to maybe raise their stock at the tournament this year. Do you feel like that is like the defining, I guess, characteristic about why this tournament maybe stands out from other international competition up in hockey and just like sports in general? Because it's a challenge of these teams coming together and picking the right team player wise, but also then you have to corral these guys over the course of 2 weeks to play a certain style. And it's just kind of a hodgepodge of strategy and talent all mashed together for this one big 2 week tournament.
Yeah, I would say that, the fact that it is junior hockey players, the fact that they're all teenagers, the fact that but they still play at this remarkably high level. I mean, you look at the 18-year-olds that have come into the NHL and played at a high level. These guys are, maybe a couple steps below them and really, it's about as close to NHL pace as you're going to see
Mhm.
anywhere. And so you have that too. And I think what's important to know about the World Juniors is, we talk about prospects and a lot of people are like, why didn't this guy make it? Why didn't that guy make it? It's not about what they're going to do in 5 years like the draft is. It's what you can do right now. And so you're going to see guys that maybe didn't get drafted, but they're just playing better now. You're going to see
Yep.
that on Team USA. You're going to see guys that were fifth and sixth and seventh round picks and not maybe some of the first round picks don't make it, So that's kind of the cool thing about it too, is it's a snapshot of these players right now. And it has been a bit of a prelude to superstardom. And so I think that that's going to be one of the real interesting things to kind of corral in terms of just the various things that happen over the course of the tournament. But then on top of that, it's all about building over the course of the tournament too. That's the other thing that I took a roundabout way to get there, but that is the really important thing in terms of what we see with this tournament is that, like, for Bob Motzko and Team USA, it's about the adjustments you make. It's about the lineup decisions you make, who you take in, who you take out, who you start in net. All of those things, it's a hyper intense thing. And you have to get those decisions right in a short amount of time. That's probably the one, and you also have to continually get better and build up through and make sure that you're peaking not in the prelims, but in the gold medal
Right.
in the
Yeah.
semis in the gold medal game. And so it is one of, I think, you think about the coach matters a ton. Like David Carl, like last year, the mentality that the team played with, the identity that the team plays with matters a lot. So the coach can actually have a real influence in a very short amount of time. But again, it's on the players to then execute. And so there are so many little things that make this special. And I think that fact that you've got impressionable players who can't always keep their emotions in check and can't always do, the things that a professional does, that almost less clean version of what you see
Yeah.
in the NHL is kind of what makes the World Junior so exciting.
So, Chris, in trying to go for there, which is incredible to say because it took forever for this country to win a gold, but in trying to go for their third consecutive gold, going through the athletic projections that you and your colleague had for the U.S. team, it feels like you guys are a little bit suspect or leery of the goaltending, the center position. Like, how do you think this team does ultimately stack up against the past two that did win gold?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that there's some key differences. The top end isn't as high end as the last two teams. We're thinking Gabe Perreault, Ryan Leonard, but there are some of those guys are back. James Higgins, who was the top line center, Cole Hudson, who was the number one defenseman. So you have some of that, but I think that the very top end isn't quite as high end as the last couple of runs. The depth, they're not quite as deep either at the forward position, but I don't think, like, after seeing the camp roster, so when we put those rosters together at the Athletic, we hadn't seen exactly what the camp roster would be. Now that we've seen that, we've seen kind of some of where these decisions lied or went. And I think on paper, the team that they are, they have to make cuts still with their
Mhm.
roster. But on paper, I do think that this is a team that has a reasonable expectation to at least compete for, gold. And they're not going to be the favorite. I don't know that they were the favorite, like I think they were favorites, often in the last couple of them, but they won't be this time. And that's okay. I do think Sweden and Canada probably on paper have more talented teams, but this U.S. team is very good. To have Cole Hudson back, to have James Hagen's back, to add some of the players that they're adding, that's the thing. The biggest missing piece, they don't have Trey Augustine in net, who they've had for the last 3 World Junior Championships and the last 2 gold medals. Only goalie to ever go back to back. Not certainly not the first to play in 3 straight World Juniors, but it's very rare. And so you lose that, and it's probably going to be Nick Kempf, the starting goalie for Notre Dame. And Notre Dame has struggled a bit. And Kempf has, but that's kind of where we're at. The goaltending pool is a little bit shallower. I wondered if they might go young to for a third goalie. They did not. They stayed with all 2006 born goalies. So I think like Nick Kempf, it's hard to, he might not look the best on paper relative to Trey Augustine, but he's probably a closer to average goalie to what USA has had. Now, the years that they've won gold, their goalie has been one of their best players every time out. And I think that's actually true for like any champion team, in international hockey, you got to get the goalie to go. Nick Kempf at least has the ability to get hot at the right time. And he's played internationally. He's done very well. He is a drafted goalie by the Washington Capitals. Caleb Heil is the next guy up. And I think that he's had not great numbers in Madison this year, but he did play in an NHL preseason game, which is kind of weird in this new era that you can play NHL preseason game and go back to the USHL. But he did that, and he actually had a shut. He had stopped 3 consecutive shooters. I believe it was Steven Stamkos was one of the ones that he stopped. It was Philip Forsberg, and I can't remember and Jonathan Marchessault. So in a shootout, he stopped those guys, and so like I think that's really cool. And Caleb is actually this week, as we're talking, going to the World Junior A Challenge, so he'll get a little bit of that taste of that international hockey, and maybe get hot, and maybe all of a sudden you're talking about a 1A 1B kind of situation. But that's where things stand in net for USA.
Not the favorites, but does it play in, especially like your time covering the tournament, whether it's been in Buffalo or in Canada, abroad? Do you notice that does playing on home turf for a team move the needle at all? Like, is that going to benefit despite not being a favorite here coming in this year?
I think it can. I think it can move the needle game to game. Like if you have a crowd behind you, um, you can get that little extra edge. The U.S. has not won gold on home ice ever, and so that is something that I think about. Sometimes it's just the way it goes. Like you don't have the best team. You don't have things didn't break the right way for you. You have a weird loss here or there. And then last year Canada out in the quarters on home ice. It almost was like it was worse to be on home ice because the
Yeah,
pressure seemed to mount so much. I
absolutely.
think in the U.S. you don't deal with that level of scrutiny and pressure and media attention, and it's not on Sports Center every night where
Right.
it is in Canada. Um, but what I think helps is you're going to have a number of guys that are from Minnesota on this team that are going to want to. They're excuse me. I don't think they're feeling the pressure. I think what they're feeling is a sense of responsibility based on kind of some of the things that we've talked about with players over the times and going back to the summer camp. There's a real comfort, I think, to a lot of them in playing there. Some of these guys maybe played in the X in the state championship or state tournament. Maybe they have played there in college. But now they're going to get this chance with the USA sweater on, and I think that that's going to be really interesting to watch them kind of thrive in that environment. I think they will. Like I said, in Buffalo, I thought it made a huge difference in the outdoor game. Like it was half Canada, half USA at that game. It was really
Mhm.
interesting. And that was, the outdoor game, and Brady Tkachuk ends up scoring a shootout winning goal
Yeah.
in that event in one of the iconic moments of the tournament. And so, unfortunately, they didn't win gold that year, but I think that in that game setting and like that New Year's Eve game against Sweden, I feel is the litmus test for whether or not home ice advantage is going to work. I think it's going to be one of the games that is best attended, and on top of that, that you there's going to be a lot to play for in that game. Like whoever wins that game, very likely is number one in their group,
Mhm.
and that is likely going to be the difference between whether you play Canada in, say, the gold medal game or the semifinal. And so that is a really critical game. So that's the one where I think we'll see when we check the temperature in Minnesota. That's the game that I think we'll use as kind of the litmus test for what it's going to look like in the medal round as well.
No surprise, Chris, but it looks like Canada loaded again. But it feels like we say that every single year. Like they're loaded. Well, they're Canada. Um, how dangerous do you think that this team is? Because I do agree with you. It's the one thing, especially because these are kids playing. It's the one thing that as much as that tournament is held in Canada, it seems to be almost a disadvantage for them. Like you look at the coverage, and to your point, like that would be like if you were on national TV constantly, and you're 18 and you're in the
Yeah.
tabloids and things. So how much do you think it will help them? How good do you think they are? But also, I know that we aren't that far from Canada, but we're far enough where I think it's going to dial down the coverage by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they'll still be on, TSN every night because it's a big deal for TSN and everything. So they'll still have that level of pressure. But I would say that the thing is when you get out of the Canadian spotlight, there is a little bit of that pressure off because the crowd isn't, completely on your side. The crowd is there aren't as many people on your side there. And I think that they're going to come in with a more of a chip on their shoulder, which I think does make Canada more dangerous. They're going to be coached by Dale Hunter, who has won this tournament in the past.
Hmm.
They are going to get some help from the NHL. There are going to be a number of players that do return. There will be some that don't, like Matthew Schaefer. That ship has sailed. But like that. And Macklin Celebrini is still eligible for this tournament, if that makes you feel
Oh
any
my
better. So yeah,
God.
it's like, you think about that
Oh.
and what Canada would look like with those guys. But very likely to get Zane Parekh back. Very likely to get Harrison Brunick from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Very likely. Well, I wouldn't say very likely, but like possibly going to get Michael Misa, the number 2 pick from last year's draft. Then you throw in Gavin McKenna, the projected number 1 guy. You throw in Porter Martone, who's been awesome for Michigan State this year.
Mhm.
It's going to be a very good team. They're going to have, a dozen or so first round draft picks on their roster. They're going to have both of their goalies are returning from last season, Carter George and Jack Ivankovic, who I think are great goalies at the international level, and probably give Canada the best goaltending tandem, which is very rare for Canada in this event. They usually do not have that, but I think George and Ivankovic together, and even Joshua Ravensbergen, who's a first round pick, probably going to be their number 3 goalie. So that this is a really interesting team to follow in that way. I would say that they're going to go into this tournament as the favorite. They do almost every year, as you said, and I think that it's not surprising at all. And it's never like I don't think it helps them. I don't think it hurts them. It's just the guys that show up have to show up ready. They've got a great coaching staff in place. They've got great players at their disposal. It's all about coming together at the right time. If they get the help from the NHL, great. If they don't, they're still going to be a wagon. They're still going to have a great team. So it's just really going to come down to, do they beat themselves? Which they absolutely beat themselves last year. And I thought last year the coaching, like it is very rare that I will criticize coaching because they know things that I don't know. They have, but you could see players just were in the wrong spots. Like they were not even playing in the right position on the power play that they would normally play. They were, utilizing like Berkeley Catton could barely get on the ice and he was a top 10 pick with electric offensive ability. And now they won't even have him this year because he's going to be in the NHL. So there's a lot of things that you could do. I think Dale Hunter and Gardner McDougall, who's the assistant coach and has won everything in Canada, they are going to have this team really prepared for the tournament, which is half the battle sometimes in this whole thing.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on Team Sweden, because that's one that, USA fans, Minnesotans that are going are going to have to get acquainted with, especially for that 31st matchup at Grand Casino Arena. Selfishly, also too, I would love to hear your thoughts on a guy who I am super excited to see probably in person with. Correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Ivar Stenberg. He has been having a terrific season with Frölunda overseas, and he might. I mean, if McKenna wasn't in the draft, he might be pushing for number one, and he frankly still might push for the top spot come draft day. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Team Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden to me is I really do feel like they're a legitimate gold medal contender. The biggest the Sweden has failed to win the big game
Mm-hmm.
so much at this tournament. And they are sick of talking about it. But but we got to continue to ask the question, because why does it happen?
Yeah.
In the gold medal game, in the semifinal, and they always seem to find their worst at the worst possible moment. I think this team has a chance to be different because of the quality of the team that they have. They have, their top level guys are as good as anybody in this tournament. You're going to talk Anton Frundell, Victor Eklund, Ivar Stenberg. You got it right.
Thank you.
And then also, those, yeah, those other guys that are like their secondary guys are really impressive. Viggo Bjork, who's going to be a first round pick this year. Jack Berglund, who is a gigantic center and a Philadelphia Flyers draft pick. Their defense has guys like Leo Salin Wallenius and Sasha Boumedian, and they have good enough goaltending. Their goaltending that's the one area where I'm a little bit uncertain, but they're all prospects and guys that they can do it. But to talk like Ivar Stenberg is going to play an outsized role, I think, for this team. He is averaging a point per game in the Swedish Hockey League as an 18-year-old. He's basically having one of the best draft seasons production wise we've ever seen in the SHL. He is, he's a 5'11", 6-foot winger, which is again like same as Gavin McKenna. So like they're that, but the thing that Ivar does that I think is going to make him such a factor in this tournament is he plays the game hard. He's got a motor to him. He's got some aggression to him. He hasn't shied away from the pro players that he's played against. He is a driver. He can absolutely drive play in this tournament, and he can take over games. And if he does that, then we are going to start having more conversations about him higher in the draft. I mean, I think right now there's a real case for him to be number 2, number 3 in this draft class, and maybe we'll see what happens. The way that Gavin McKenna has played to date hasn't solidified him as the number 1 guy. So there's a lot of that there, but I'd say like Ivar Stenberg is absolutely a guy to watch. Anton Frundell is another player that I think, drafted 3rd overall last year. Victor Eklund was in this tournament last year, first round draft pick of the Islanders. And then, other guys like Bjork, and there's tons more that we could mention, but this is a team that has a chip on their shoulder. They want to win. They want to win the big game. And I think they would love to do it on U.S. ice, because as big of a rivalry as USA Canada is, and it is, the rivalry between U.S. and Sweden has gotten way, way, way more intense quietly. Not because like we don't talk about it. Nobody talks about USA Sweden, but these guys go at each other at every single age level.
Yeah.
There is a lot of animosity built up. USA beat Sweden on their home ice 2 years ago in a very raucous game, and they are ready. This is their opportunity for some revenge. So I think New Year's Eve, that is going to be an instant classic game between USA and Sweden.
That's very, very cool. Is there a dark horse team as far as you're concerned?
I think people should not sleep on Czech. The Czechs, they ousted Canada in each of the last 2 years. Still didn't really get the credit they were due. But I think that there are a lot of interesting elements to their team. Not the least of which is the quality of their forward group. They have some really strong forwards. They have Adam Banach, who was in the USHL last year, now in the OHL with the Brantford Bulldogs. He's been absolutely torching that league point wise, power play weapon. Vaclav Nestrasil, who plays at UMass and played in the USHL last year.
Mm-hmm.
He has been one of the best players in college hockey this year, and I don't know if anybody really predicted that he'd be that good that soon. But he's a 6'6" forward that can score. So that's tough too. They do have some good goaltending. They don't have the goalie that they've had the last few years, Michael Harabel, who's at UMass as well. But I do think that is a team that if you are not careful with them, they will get you. And Canada learned that the hard way the last 2 years.
Age, go ahead.
In terms of Team USA, you said they're going to make some cuts, but is there a guy, especially with the outgoings we've seen over the past year, the turnover there, who do you expect is maybe one to watch, maybe step in and fill a bigger role that maybe a lot of hockey fans who even watched last year are like, oh, this guy not really on my radar?
Yeah, well, there's a couple. I do think like we'll have to see what the roster goes, but I'd say Chase Reed on defense. He plays for the Sioux Greyhounds in the OHL. He's making the camp. He's a projected top 10 pick right now, maybe even top 5. 6'2" right shot defenseman, highly offensive, really good skill. I think that could be a guy that maybe is your second power play defenseman. Maybe he gives you a little bit of an extra boost offensively from the back end. But the guy that I think every Minnesotan should be watching, and no, this is not going to be a surprise to anyone that has been following college hockey, but it's Max Plant. I mean, the way that he has played this year. He was good last year, but in small doses. They didn't use him as much last year. He is one of the smartest players you will see. His hockey IQ is off the charts, and that's why he's producing at such a high level. He's also a great competitor. He loves being at the rink. You can just tell this is a kid that loves to play hockey. He is going to be like one of those glue guys for this team, I feel like. And he'll be on one of the power play units. He's an excellent distributor of the puck. I think he'll probably be one of the team's leaders in assists, and I think that he's going to like make the guys around him better. And so it'll be a continuation of what he's been doing at UMD this year. I mean, did anybody see the Bulldogs doing what they're doing this season? I mean, like it's just incredible to watch the Plant brothers, Adam Guyon, like that team has been a treat to watch. And then you also got Adam Kleber on the back end, who's now driving some of that success in Duluth as well, and was on the team last year. So I can't say enough good things about Max Plant, the way that he's played this year. I really like the player. I like the person. I think the Plant family is great for Minnesota hockey, and I think that would be pretty amazing.
How much does the fact that Max and I think 8 other guys from the team that won gold a year ago are returning to this team, how much does that help as well, just to have that the fact that those guys, those 9 players have been through this and sort of know what the challenges are to win a gold medal, do you think?
I think it matters a ton, and I think it matters a ton because they watched the guys ahead of them, how important it was to them to make history, how important it was to be repeat champions. That's something that can be conveyed through the example that was left by Ryan Leonard and Zeev Buyum and
Yeah.
and those players. I think that they'll get reminders from those guys. I think that those guys are very much the USA Hockey family is so tight knit that they're going to be getting that encouragement from those guys and some of the training of how to do that. Bob Motzko has won this as a coach. That matters a ton.
Mm-hmm.
He's been through the making the adjustments. I mean, I think back, like Troy Terry was one of the last picks on that team. He ended up winning them the tournament. And it was, it was I mean, like single-handedly practically. And, it's all about pushing the right buttons. And so I think having that experience matters a ton. And James Hagan's played his best hockey in the gold medal game last year. Cole Hudson played his best games against Canada and in the gold medal game. Cole Eiserman played his best games in the biggest games. Those guys showed up in the most important moments, and that's what they're going to be able to carry into this tournament. So I think that this team, I will admit, I discounted them in terms of what their potential is.
Sure.
After seeing the camp roster and seeing where they can take this is a team that has a chance to surprise people, and I think that they're probably going to carry that underdog mentality in the best possible way.
3 consecutive would be absolutely incredible too. So, hey, Chris, great stuff. Tell us again, tell the folks here where they can find your stuff. I know FloHockey, but you also, as I said at the outset of the show, contribute to a ton of different hockey prospect shows.
Yeah, I like to keep myself busy. So yeah, FloHockey.com or FloHockey.tv is my primary. You'll see a lot of all my World Junior written coverage will be there. The podcast is called Up the Prospects Podcast, which is part of the Flow Hockey Network or Flow Sports Network. And then on top of that, I do the Athletic Hockey Show. I also contribute to TSN's draft coverage in Canada. That has been a really, and some of their prospect coverage as well. I do a lot of work with Craig Button up there. I've been really lucky to have been in this kind of role in prospects and everything. And so, yeah, but like, I can't wait. Like we do so much at Flow Hockey for like this tournament. We really consider a tentpole event, even though it's not something that we stream on our platform,
Sure.
just because so many of these players play in our leagues and play in the leagues that we do stream. And I think if you are a fan of this tournament, I know as a fan, I always wanted extended coverage of the World Juniors. And I never got it, so I was like, I guess that's me.
No,
That's
you
what I'm
didn't,
here
and neither did I.
for. So here I am. And happy to fill that role. To see this tournament grow the way that it has over the years, the fact that we're in the 50th anniversary,
Yep.
I am just thrilled to have been a part of it, and hopefully people enjoy the coverage because we're going to be working our butts off to make it the best it can possibly be.
Great stuff, sir. Thanks much. Again, check out Chris's work. It will be expanding, I'm sure, as the tournament nears, which we are very close now. Don't forget, worldjuniorsmn26.com for ticket information. I'm Judd. He's AJ. This has been Judd's Hockey Show, Road to the World Junior Championships.